driving dangerously. Sorry if anyone else gets killed, but at least you don't have to put your hands on the steering wheel for your 15-minute drive.
Next is the bypass of drunk driving, I guess. Some people, I had a buddy in college, I'd never heard of this device before, but a friend, he said in high school got busted for like DUI or something, maybe he was in college. And he had to put like a breathalyzer device to start his car for like however long, because it was a bit of a probationary period for him to drive. Imagine if some aftermarket company makes some way to get around that. It's for safety, you guys, it's for safety. Don't just try and go around it, but that's the way of the world right now. Last story, you guys, to wrap up the week. Maybe it'll be touching because it's about animals and their feelings, emotions, and anxieties. But did you know it was this kind of animal?
Memory and time. Lily, look at pictures. I felt sad. I want to feel sad. I want to feel mad. Body.
What happened to Lily?
Ouch. Ouch.
Lily had an ouch. She had a big ouch, though. Big
ouch.
Yo, wait, that bird, that parrot or something, one of those, I'm not a bird person, named Lily is talking through an iPad, or at least some kind of touchscreen system, to let everyone know what it is that she feels. Apparently, she feels bad because she lost her good friend, Lily, who died of cancer. Remember that part, because this means a lot when it comes to what Ellie is feeling. Because not only is her owner teaching her how to speak and let everyone know what she's thinking, but also doing it with the correct grammatical wording here. Let's watch that.
Past. Which happy is past? Which one is past?
I felt happy.
That's right. Which one is future?
I felt happy.
That's right. What's future?
I will feel happy.
That's right. Future is I will feel happy. What is present? Which one is that?
I feel happy.
Good girl.
E.
What? Amazing. B.
B.
Good job.
Craziness. Jordan, jump in here because there's more, but I want to make sure your first thoughts. You ready to get a parrot yet? You want to teach him or her all of these things?
No, I've got a cat, and I think my cat would just kill a bird.
Teach the cat.
I don't think it's a good idea. No, my cat's she does her own thing. She runs the house. I just live in it. I always, whenever I see these videos of animals hitting buttons to correspond with words or messages, I'm always a little skeptical, but I'm starting to come around on it. Like, it's just, it's a Pavlovian thing, right? They're being rewarded by certain sounds. Like they can associate acts, functions, whatever with sounds. So it's like you can train them to do it, but I don't think we should undersell just how intelligent animals are and how I think a lot of people take that for granted or underestimate animals. There was a report a couple days ago that showed that dolphin mothers use baby speak when talking to their kids and their babies. And I thought that was pretty cool, despite hating dolphins and they are the worst animals on the planet. And we can set aside an hour for that later, but it just. I just thought that was really funny and interesting, and I think people don't apply the same understanding or leniency or whatever when we're talking about language and how animals communicate with each other, because maybe it's hubris for the human species or something else, but we just don't afford them the same understanding of the complexity of their language that we have for ours.
The main thing I heard was that dolphins apparently are the worst creatures in existence, according to Jordan. We're gonna come back to that, but if you guys should look up the way dolphins sleep, and it's fascinating, bro. I was amazed. Look up the way dolphins sleep. It's amazing. Anyway,
upside down, right?
They go with like their pod of other dolphins. We're gonna get cut off, but they go with the pod of other dolphins and protect the one sleeping. It's amazing. They swim while I heard it on like a whale watching tour once. Anyways, thanks, Jordan, for being on the watch list today, despite the fact that everyone will hate you over that dolphin hate. And thank you guys for joining me as well. Look forward to seeing you again, Jordan, really soon. Also, you guys, it's Friday. Go check out the Young Turks. It's a pop power panel. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. We're going to do a standard power panel in a minute, and I'm going to have some great guest hosts join me as we normally do. But before we do anything else today, I wanted to take a minute out to talk to you guys about what kind of show and network we are, because apparently that some people are questioning it, and so I have clear answers. And then people can make their decisions based on that, okay? So we've been doing this for 21 years, and the entire time we've been progressive and fighting very hard for progressive issues and done a lot of things. I'm not gonna get into our resume of all the great things that mainly our audience has done, because without them, we don't have any power. And those folks have done amazing things in the world, like launch Just Democrats, etc. So we're not going to pop out of a cake in a couple of days and go, ta-da! right-wing pivot. We laid a 21-year bear trap for you guys so that at the end we could do a right-wing pivot and then lose our entire audience. The people are like, oh, you guys are grifters. You are denying your audience what they want. Wait, how would that be a grift? You guys want to go from an incredibly successful progressive show that gets hundreds of millions of views every month to being right-wingers to get no views. If that was true, why would that be a grift? That's not a grift, that's just a disastrous decision. No, we're doing something radical on this network. And so I want you to understand it. We're allowing for discussion and debate and disagreements. Now, a lot of people don't want that. Like tons of right-wingers go, no, I don't want any of that. I just want Fox News or Newsmax or Tucker Carlson or whoever it is. And I just want him to say the things that I want to hear. And in fact, Fox News got in trouble with them in the Dominion lawsuit because you see the internal emails. Let's not tell people things that are true. Let's just tell the audience what they want to hear. Now, I was proud that the left wing didn't do that for a long, long time. We are open-minded, we're reasonable, we have conversations. But unfortunately, at this point, there are some forces that say no. There should be no discussion. There is a correct opinion, and everyone should be forced to have that correct opinion. Or they should be canceled or fired, or no one should watch them, or all these other consequences that flow from that. Well, God bless, there's really good news because there's tons of leftist shows now that never disagree with a preset so-called leftist ideology. They agree with 100% of the issues, 100% of the time, and they almost all do it, right? You sure they're honest with you that they agree with the whatever is the trend of the day 100% of the time? By the way, they could prove me wrong. They could say, oh yeah, I don't agree with the left on this, and this, and see, nobody canceled me, everybody's fine. Now they're gonna do try benign things like, oh yeah, well I like orange more than I like yellow. No, give me real disagreements. You're not gonna do it, are you? Because you're worried. Well, we are gonna do it on this network. So we do things like, hey, I do something that is almost unheard of in media. I hire people who disagree with me. And so some have disagreed on the right, some have disagreed on the left, and then they have come out and not only disagree with me massively on our air, and I'm totally okay with it. Totally okay with it. And then they will sometimes go over the edge and say vicious and crazy things, and we're still okay with it. And then and then you guys know that recently someone who we liked and really supported, etc., decided to call me an evil person, a racist, a transphobe, pathetic, embarrassing, all these terrible, terrible, terrible things. And then they quit. And after they quit, they say, I quit because this guy who runs the company won't agree with me. But sister, I platformed you. I said, here's a platform, go for it. And not only can you say anything you want, you can say something that totally and utterly disagrees with me. Not good enough. Is that a standard? That everyone has to agree with just one of the hosts? Well, if that's the standard and two hosts disagree, what am I gonna do? Well, I'm for, apparently the new standard is everyone must agree. So who do I fire? Which of the two hosts that disagree do I fire? Do I go to Twitter and ask the left-wing activists or the ones pretending to be activists for our side? Okay, guys, since apparently no one voted, but apparently you guys are the arbiters of what's on the left, despite the fact that the polling shows that you are not. You're often very, very, very wrong. I'll give you the classic example, Latinx. I was told 100 times, oh, you are you're going against the Latino community. It's like, I don't think so. I've never seen a Latino person call themselves Latinx. I think you made that up. They're like, how dare you, right? And it turns out we did a poll, or we didn't do it, somebody did. 96% of Latinos don't want to be called Latinx. Did anyone learn from that? That maybe randos online don't actually know what they're talking about and that they don't actually speak for that community? But even if they did or we were wrong, etc., the most important thing is, will we have disagreement and will that be allowed? And the answer definitively on the Young Turks is yes. And if you don't like that, like I said, there's a billion options, right wing, left wing, and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But if you want to have a real conversation, an honest conversation, there's one place in media. And by the way, it doesn't matter if people yell at me. I've been through it 100 times. Everyone here knows we've been through it 100 times, right? And every time, oh, Jimmy Dore is right. Oh, Sam Harris is right. And then later, oops, yeah, they're totally wrong. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard is, oops, Young Turks were right again. Oops. But do they learn anything from that? No. And do I change how we conduct things because of the pressure? No. I do not give in to the pressure, but I also do not go in the other direction. Oh, you hurt my feelings. So from now on, I'm going to be against gay rights or trans rights. No, we will not do that under any circumstance. No, I'm still gonna support trans community. I'm still gonna support gay rights 100%. I'm gonna support both those communities 100%. And as you'll see, likely be the toughest and strongest fighter for them. I don't care if some trans people or anyone in any leftist community yells at me. You think I'm gonna like betray Latinos because somebody's telling me that I'm against Latinos because I said I don't believe that Latinx is the proper term? I'm never gonna do that. No, I'm gonna fight for Latinos. I'm gonna fight for African Americans. I'm gonna fight for all of these communities. And you might have seen online, oh, here's a tweet there. Here's a video, like a 5-second clip or a 12-second clip over there. Okay, oh my God, oh, I hear they're right wingers now, okay? And then you know what happens when people come watch the show? They're like, wait, I don't get it. They don't look anything like what I heard. They sound really progressive. My God, they seem like they're really fighting for us. You know why? Because we've been doing it for 21 years, okay? And that's exactly what we are, and we're not gonna change it. So look, the last things I'll say is that we have given a number of folks from all the different communities a platform here when no one else did. And so we hired a number of trans hosts. I don't see a lot of other left-wing shows hiring tons of trans hosts. So, okay, good, God bless. And then we have a disagreement. And then did I kick them out? No, I said, okay, continue to have a disagreement. And they said, no, because not everyone at the company agrees with me. You guys are transphobes, racist, etc. And how dare you disagree? That's it, we're out. And look, if you're in that camp and you say, hey, 5% disagreement, too much. I can't handle it. I need something else. Again, all the power in the world to you. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not saying to you guys, oh, please stay. And I'm not saying, oh, go, I don't care. And are there people with good intent in our audience who believe in these issues and disagree with me fervently out of good intent? Absolutely. And brothers, I'm not telling you to go or stay. If you're comfortable with disagreement, but we want to get to the same place, great, stay. If you say, no, I want something else, that's okay. I'm just being clear with you guys as to what we think. And so, last thing I'll add is, some people are convinced that they're political geniuses and they like to lean into fighting on the wrong grounds, right? And they say, oh, politics doesn't matter. Well, here's how it matters. When you lose elections, they pass 70 laws against the LGBTQ community. You want to win elections so they don't pass bills against you. Instead, we pass bills that give you 100% the same rights, not more rights, not less rights, the same exact rights as every US citizen. And by the way, we get paid family leave, higher minimum wage, fight climate change, and all the wonderful things we want in the world. So if you say politics doesn't matter, then you're in the wrong business, okay? You're not understanding it. If you say, hey, the maximalist position, so let's not use words like radical, extreme, etc. Let's just say the maximalist position. I think everybody would agree that people that are in the activist community are going for the maximalist position. If you say the maximalist position, whether it's right wing or left wing, always gets you victories, sorry, you don't know politics. That's just not true. It's not remotely true. And so, oh, the American people agree with us anyway on, let's say, for example, one of the disagreements that I have on the issue of trans people in sports. I think that, by the way, the American people don't agree with me either. 70% say that trans people should not participate in any sports that is not in the sex that they were born in, right? Well, I think they should participate in high school, and I think we could win that argument. And I think that the way you win that argument is to say, look, Republicans, which of you perverts is gonna go do the genital check on these kids? And you know what that happens? Then the average American goes, whoa, yeah, that's not right. I don't want them doing that to the kids. Hey, let the kids play the sports, okay? But if you go into the teeth of the only ground that the LGBTQ community loses on. We win on everything else, right? We win on trans rights, gay marriage, equality in housing, discrimination, etc. They tried the trans bathroom thing, it didn't work. They tried trying to kick transgender people out of the military, it didn't work. We won on all these grounds. And the Republicans dug in and dug in and dug in, and they found one thing that 7 out of 10 Americans agree with them and not us on, and that's trans sports. So my opinion is let them play in high school, but when it comes to a professional league, let the league decide. If you think that is 100% disagreement and that's trans erasure, etc., okay, we disagree. And that means, in my opinion, you're saying, I won't tolerate 1% disagreement, 2%, 5%, whatever number you want to put on. I won't tolerate it. I want a show that agrees with me all the time on everything, okay? Okay, well, there's nothing I could do again. But if you say, hey, you know what? I want to win, and I want to frame things in the right way so we protect our community. And I'm going to try to protect that community, whether the activists agree or not. And this is not about trans issues in specific, it's about all of those communities. So look, I think the police in this country need massive, colossal reform. But if you go with the slogan of defund the police, you get killed in the elections, you do. Well, I don't like that we lose well, I don't like it either. So we should have better framing. I don't want to do better framing. I want to be maximalist. Okay, but you're not going to win that way. And if you say, hey, I don't like it. I don't like that you are saying things that are nearly indisputably correct on the politics of it. And I don't like that the country doesn't agree with us. And I don't like the idea of trying to convince them. I just want to call them transphobes, racists. I want to call them names. And I think that's a brilliant political strategy because that's going to win them over. Sorry, but you're wrong. It doesn't win them over. Being able to empathize and say, you don't want to do that to kids. You don't want to do that to other human beings that are just like you. Telling them, hey guys, do you have anybody who's trans in your life? And even if you don't, imagine that you feel you were born a different way. And then you have the courage to come out. And you have the courage to change and transition. And that is so incredibly hard. Can you not have empathy for that person? Can you not say, oh my God, that's another human being. And maybe I should root for them instead of rooting against them. That's how you reach out to people and win them over. So we win on all of those issues, we win on all those policies, and we win on the elections. And we get bills that help your life instead of hurting your life. But if you disagree, for the billionth time, that's okay. This is a network where there is discussion and disagreement. And that is super clear, and it is never going to change. All right, now having said that, we go on with the show, drop it. All right, now power panel, Ravana, who's on Rebel headquarters, Michael Schur, who is on a lot of our programming and talks to MAGA on a regular basis, God help him, talking about difference of opinion, and recently came back from a South Carolina trip. All right, great to have you guys here. Michael, take it away.
Yeah, let's begin with this.
The Biden administration expected to announce today that the U.S. will in fact provide Ukraine with cluster munitions. That's according to administration and defense officials as well. These weapons, right, they disperse small bombs over a wide area that risk harming civilian populations. More than 100 countries have signed a UN convention banning the use, by the way, of these types of munitions.
So cluster munitions that we probably didn't know very much about when we woke up today are weapons that can sort of scatter bombs and send out what are called like bomblets and can cause massive damage. Ukraine has asked the United States to send them. They've been asking for them now for months. The United States, it seems, is finally ready to go ahead, Cenk, and do that. And you know, that clip showed us though that they've been used in this conflict already, both by Russia and to a lesser extent Ukraine. But here is in fact why they are so dangerous.
An announcement expected today, and the US will supply Ukraine with cluster munitions, reportedly thousands of them as part of a new military assistance package worth $800 million. It comes as Ukraine tries to break through Russian lines in its counteroffensive, and these cluster munitions will apparently be very helpful to the Ukrainians in doing that. Now, why is this controversial? Well, cluster bombs break apart midair and scatter smaller munitions over a wide area. Some of them do not explode initially, and they pose a deadly threat to civilians after the fighting, sometimes even years later. Now, the Pentagon claims that the cluster munitions the US is considering sending have a very low dud rate, making that threat much lower.
And a dud rate, to be clear, is when they launch these missiles and these munitions, when they spread all of these bombs in a cluster, some of them don't go off. They're duds, like we just saw earlier this week. Fireworks, July 4th, sometimes it just doesn't go off. Well, when these don't go off, they can cause massive damage, and that damage can last for years and years. These are sort of akin to landmines that could be found later on and cause damage to civilians. So, you know, CNN has reported that they've been talking about this. Ukraine has been asking for these munitions as far back as December. In the first part of the war, Cenk, already, Russia used these cluster munitions already on their own. Since the Russian invasion on February 24th, 2022, preliminary data compiled by the Cluster Munition Monitor indicates that 689 casualties were reported during cluster munition attacks in Ukraine as of July of 2022. These reported casualties included 215 people killed and 474 injured. All of the casualties in Ukraine were civilians, when their status was reported. Ukraine, though, has also, as I mentioned, used these munitions. What is a little different about this, and what Ukraine is saying makes these necessary, is that they want to use them in a defensive manner. They want to be able to hold the line, to wipe out vehicles that are making encroachments into Ukraine, even on the Russian side to a degree, where they're lining up, they're going to small villages and towns. Well, that makes a lot of sense. The damage, though, of course, could get worse if there are that many duds and people, civilians in these towns, come into contact with them. So Ukraine's use of these, again, they've used them already on a smaller scale. Ukrainian cluster munition rockets attacks in the city of Izium in 2022 killed at least 8 civilians, wounded 15 more, according to Human Rights Watch. Today, President Biden spoke on this, and he said that he is reluctant to supply these munitions, but that they will be going ahead with it, it seems.
Yes.
The ammunition, they call them 155 millimeter weapons. This is a war relating to munitions, and they're running out of that ammunition, and we're low on it. But it was not an easy decision, and we're not signatories to that agreement. But it took me a while to be convinced to do it. But the main thing is they either have the weapon to stop the Russians now keep them from stopping the Ukrainian offensive through these areas, or they don't.
So the president's saying that they're not signatories to this deal. There are 123 countries that are, 12 that have not ratified it but have said that they want to do it. Russia's not on that list. Ukraine's not on that list. Of course, the United States is not on that list. Many countries are. Most of Western Europe is. But of course, with a number like that, you're going to have small Caribbean nations that are not going to be ever having to worry, we hope, about cluster munitions. The Pentagon spoke out about this. Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder told reporters Thursday that if a decision is made to send cluster munitions, the military would not give Ukraine cluster munitions with a dud rate, or the percent that failed to explode, creating long-term hazards of more than 2.35%. Biden is barred by Congress from exporting cluster munitions with dud rates over 1%. However, the Washington Post reported that the administration plans to bypass that restriction using the Foreign Assistance Act, which lets the president provide aid regardless of limits if he notifies the Congress that it is in the vital U.S. interest. Cenk?
Okay, so this is On the weapons is a little bit of a complicated issue, but overall it is not complicated in my opinion. So why do I say it's complicated on the weapons issue? Well, they say this is going to be a very effective weapon against the Russians because the Russians are dug in inside Ukrainian territory. When a cluster bomb goes off, it has 88 different explosive devices that create a ripple effect bomb, right? And it digs people out from their trenches, etc. And that's why it's going to be effective. Well, that's true. It's also true that chemical weapons would be very effective. They would totally run out of their trenches because they'd all be dying. Nuclear weapons would be very effective, but they come with a massive downside. But we also then look at these weapons and go, okay, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, out of bounds. Thank God, right? Most of us do. But then we go, okay, but just dropping a bomb on someone, that's okay. So then you say, well, it's war, right? And then some on the right wing will go, well, war is hell. So let's just drop bombs and then see what happens, right? No, so we've got to find a balance. We've got to find where we say, yes, that bomb kills the bejesus out of people, but we're going to use it in this context because we're in the middle of a war and those are combatants and they've invaded this country, right? And we're trying to get back our sovereignty. But here's the weapons we will not use, right? Whether you're Ukraine, US, or the world community, because they're over the line. Now, good news, like we banned chemical weapons, and I think we ended our last chemical weapon today, okay, in America. And so, good, so apparently we can ban weapons, and apparently some weapons are too dangerous to non-combatants and civilians to use, like nukes, chemical, etc. So then the question becomes, are cluster bombs in that group? Well, now we get to the relatively easy part of the conversation, which is, well, Jen Psaki, when she was the White House press secretary, said that when the Russians used cluster bombs, it was a war crime. So when the Russians use it, it's a war crime, but when the Ukrainians use it, it's not a war crime? That doesn't seem right. And 100 different nations have said, do not use these weapons. They're too dangerous to civilians. So now we say, yeah, but we really want to. And when we use it or our allies use it, it's no longer a war crime. And they said, don't worry, the dud rate's going to be tiny, and then we're going to kill. It'll only go off with 1 to 2.3%. And then Biden said, no, I'm overriding that. So there's no bar on dud rates. So how many civilians are going to die later? No one knows. Hundreds, thousands, we don't know, right? And so when the entire world community is telling you, don't use these things, they're too dangerous for civilians, and you go, yeah, the other guys are awful and monsters for using it, but we're going to use it too. I think it becomes clear that this is not the right way to go. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to the statement from Jen Psaki when she was then the press secretary that it was a war crime if Russia was using it then. I think it's a war crime if Ukraine is using them now. I mean, in any sense of the word, maybe not legally, but at least morally. And also, I think it's a massive setback. Of course, we know that the United States was not a signatory to these treaties, but it massively sets back the progress that's being made to ban the use of these types of weapons within the international community, because the United States might not have fallen to the pressure that was being put on them to sign on. But at this point, they're saying, in no uncertain terms that we actually support the use of these kinds of weapons, because Joe Biden can sit there and talk about how difficult it was to come to this decision and how he had to pray on it and use whatever other kind of therapy speak he wants to talk about to sort of elicit some sort of emotional sympathy for how difficult it was for him to decide to do this. But at the same time, he's sending these weapons and he's bypassing the dud limit that is put in place legally and sending them weapons that have a higher dud rate and going past that. So I mean, no matter how he tries to frame it, at the end of the day, they're showing their support for the use of these types of weapons, no matter how much cushy language they put around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the dud rate thing is the most compelling part of this, right? I mean, that they can control 1% to 2.35%. That to me is the line that we said we would not cross 2.35%, and now and then or that's the line that these munitions will not surpass. We said 1%. The fact that they're able to fine tune this dud rate, why can't it be 0? I mean, I don't really understand that part of the argument. I also do think, and this is not really counter to what you and Ray are saying, Jake, I do think that there is a bit of a difference when you are using these as defense against the same type of munition. We have this conversation here in the United States about guns, weaponry. Whenever there is an advanced weapon, it's why the United States and most of the major superpowers are always so reluctant to go to the table on these treaties, is because you're saying to them, all right, you have the gun, we'll take the knife. Again, I think if we can both get down to knives, it's a whole lot better. But in this case, I see why there is that difference and why people are saying that that difference matters. Democratic members of Congress, not all of them. Sarah Jacobs, a member from California, saying that she's going to fight this as hard as she can to make sure that this doesn't happen. The president can't really do this. He has to report it to Congress. The tacit approval that Congress gives is going to be an interesting conversation now with Republicans in charge, but with Democrats voicing opposition to the White House.
Okay, I'm going to say last couple things here for me. So number one, the reason they say it's better for defense is because they're saying, look, we're not dropping it in Russian territory where it's going to kill Russian civilians later. We're dropping it in Ukrainian territory. So obviously after the war is over, we're going to be very careful because it's our own citizens. So I get the logic of that. But the problem is the Pentagon just put out a statement saying, no, it's okay, the Ukrainians are going to drop these bombs in a, quote, a very careful way. No, there's no dropping bombs in a very careful way. Okay, that's an absurd thing to say. And then they say, oh no, don't worry, we're only gonna use it inside Ukraine. But how do we know? So the same thing with the American-made jets that we had a discussion about a month ago that we gave them. They said, no, don't worry, they're not gonna use it in Russian territory. Unless they're about to lose and they're really worried and they think a counterstrike at the weapon systems coming down on them from inside Russia should be bombed using American-made jets and cluster bombs. And then what are we gonna say? Tut tut? No, they're gone. Once you give them the bombs and the jets, they have them, and they're gonna use them in a very careful way if they're winning. But if they're not winning, they're gonna be a lot less careful because it's their lives on the line. I get it, I get their perspective, right? But don't be ridiculous with telling me that, no, don't worry, they'll only use it in the prescribed ways.
Yeah, and war has an ugly balance sheet too, right? I mean, they look at these things and they say, okay, we're gonna lose, if Russia comes in here, we're gonna lose X number of people anyway. And if we can push them back or stop them when they cross the line into Ukraine, then we're actually saving lives rather than costing them. Those are the ugly justifications of war. There is some good news today on the munitions and weapons front, which is, and Ray, if you wanted to say something else on this, go ahead, but I was gonna spread a little, a cluster of good news, if you will, which is that, we're reminded that in 2017, the United States ceased the procurement of these weapons, of these cluster weapons. And today, as Cenk alluded to earlier, workers at the Bluegrass Army Depot in Kentucky will soon destroy the last of the United States chemical weapons. And the weapons date back to World War I, a 1997 treaty that the United States did sign on to with 193 other countries, which is just about every country you can name. And I would imagine North Korea did not sign on, has until September. Instead, the United States has till September 1st of this year, doing it about 6 weeks early.
Okay, last thing is, you don't want to encourage escalation. And this tells the Russians, we're escalating, you can escalate. Terrible idea. And why did I change my opinion on the death penalty? Because the Innocence Project proved that 4% of the people we had on death row on a consistent basis were innocent. And I was not okay with executing 4% of the people who didn't do it, right? And here we're saying with the cluster bombs, now we're going over 2.5% of people it's gonna kill that didn't have anything to do with the war. And that's deeply problematic. All right, we'll be right back. All right, let's do it. Let's go to our members first. Obviously, a lot of comments about my first segment there. Big ol' a-hole writes in, it's already funny. I kind of want to see Cenk pop out of a cake. Fair, okay. Brett Campbell, AKA Dragging My Ass, writes in, that's how societies grow and change, through debate and dialogue. Shauna writes in, I'm in with TYT for the long haul. Only news I can count on that isn't blind agreements. Thank you, Shauna, appreciate it. Thank you to all of you guys. Vicky says, True Blue member here, got your back as you have all of ours with your honest reporting. I trust you, Cenk and TYT. Look, every one of these comments, I love you, okay? Not just because you're supporting us, but more importantly, because you have an open mind. You're thinking about things in the right way. ER Phil says, Abraham Lincoln was famous for surrounding himself with smart people who disagreed with him, so you're in good company. I'll take it. By the way, Michael made this point during the break. You know who's a guy I've surrounded myself that I disagree with all the time for the last 21 years? He's sitting right next to me. It's Michael Shore. Okay, yeah. I mean, we have legendarily disagreed.
We have. I mean, we agree almost regularly, but we disagree almost regularly. But in the big picture, we agree almost. I would say almost across the board. So it just proves that you can have differences of opinion, and that's what makes the story interesting. That's what makes the conversation interesting, and that's how I've learned from Cenk, and I would like to think vice versa.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I also haven't learned from you.
Okay, Funkin' for Fun says, Cenk, I need you to state your true opinion and foster an environment where others can do the same. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, appreciate it. Tenaj714 says, new member, finally cogent discussions. Thank you, love you all. Shy Coltrane 42 says, Ray in the house. Oh, and Michael gets some love too. Uriah Heap says, you know how Joey made his decision about the cluster bombs and puts up a number of dollar signs. Jay Brownie says, I think this is a slippery, Jay Brown, sorry, says, I think this is a slippery slope. The dud rate is too high for these weapons to be used. If it's airtight for them to use these bombs, what's stopping them from using chemical weapons or something else more extreme? Obviously, Jay Brown, as you saw, we agree with you. On Twitch, Comms Taser 1, or no, just Occam's Taser, I see it now. Sometimes it's tough to read the names. Anyway, writes in, they gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you. Notorious ROB writes in, 100% agree with Cenk now. I may disagree with some of his and Anna's takes, but everyone has a right to their own opinion. Ironman 42 also gifted a sub. Thank you guys, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Ravana, Michael Shore with you guys. New member is Linda Burns. Linda, welcome, we appreciate you. Everybody can join by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube, or you can go to tyt.com/join. If you like honest reporting and good open discussions, obviously this is the place for you. Chris Birch gifted a membership on YouTube, and Detox Nurse Wendy gifted 5. You guys are all amazing, we appreciate you. Michael's got more news.
We do have more news. I mean, I don't know if it's news when you're talking about Mike Pence, because it's tough for him to make news, but he made a little bit in Iowa, the former vice president out campaigning in Iowa. And what we learn about Mike Pence is that it's a mystery how he got this far in politics, how he got to vice president. He went from the House, became governor, and then, of course, to being vice president. He was asked in front of an audience about the disproportionate rate of taxes, let's say, that billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos pay, while ordinary people are, quote, stuck footing the bill. Here is what the former vice president had to say.
I'm somebody that I don't really buy into the rich need to pay their fair share.
I don't really buy into the rich need to pay their fair share. It's the only sound we have right now. Let's listen to one more thing, and then we can have at this guy. Mike Pence said, and this is him talking, there's no question that the tax code today creates a lot of different carve-outs for people who can shelter funds, keep dollars away. I'm somebody that I don't really buy into, and we heard that the rich need to pay their fair share. When you look at the statistics of where we actually get our funding from the government, the top 10% 1% of earners in this country pay about 90% of the money that goes into the federal treasury. Let's go just one more here. Pence likes to talk to that and mislead people with those talking points. A study by the Center-Right Tax Foundation think tank indicated in 2018 that the richest 1% paid more than 40% of total federal income taxes. That's according to the Tax Foundation. So what you're looking at there and what you're listening to is a man trying to be president who is so disconnected with running for the presidency that he thinks he's okay with rich people paying less in taxes proportionally and certainly in amounts. And I don't remember more of a tone-deaf political speech in Iowa where you're not speaking to Wall Street than what Mike Pence just did there.
Yeah, so we're going to get to some of the stats that show how disastrously wrong he is in a second. But yes, we have some of the lowest marginal tax rates in the world. And he says it's too much, it's too much. And then this is a common sleight of hand that the right wing uses, right? Did you know the richest, and they'll fill in the blank 1%, 10%, etc., pay a giant percentage of the taxes? Yeah, brother, I know that if someone has $1 billion, they're going to pay a lot more in taxes than someone making $25,000. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Right? And that's why we say fair share. We're not saying, okay, give me 100% of what you made. We're not saying, it's Jesus Christ. I mean, we're down to, like I said, some of the lowest rates in the world. The corporate tax rate is preposterous. It's down to 21%. By the time they put in all the loopholes, the Irish sandwich and the double Dutch and all the different crazy things that they do in Cayman Islands and et cetera, they're down to effective tax rates that are nearly nothing. And often Amazon that makes trillions will pay nothing in taxes. Effective tax rate for some of the wealthiest people in this country are now sometimes down to 3%, right? And Mike Pence goes, nope, too much. Too much. The poor rich. I mean, come on. But they've lost touch with reality because all they do is serve their donors. So what Mike Pence is doing there is an ad to the donors saying, please send me more money. Please clap. Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I think that Michael's exactly right that the fact that Mike Pence has ever held elected office in this country is something he should consider a minor miracle, because that man has no political instincts whatsoever. And to go and campaign in Iowa and quite explicitly say, I think the rich are paying too much, and that, try to break the narrative that they're not paying enough, which is, I think very true, especially considering coming off the heels of watching here in Illinois how to successfully actually do this messaging. And I'm referring to the fair tax amendment ballot measure that we had in 2020, where we had the opportunity to have a progressive income tax in Illinois opposed to our current flat tax system, and to see the massive amounts of money in advertising being spent in the actual way to frame this argument and to frame this issue to get people to vote against their own interests. Because you can't just go out there and say, I actually don't think the rich are paying too much, because the average person isn't gonna be susceptible to that line of messaging. So I think, Cenk, you're spot on in saying that that's just explicitly a message for his donors, although I can't imagine why anyone would donate to him. You're not gonna get any kickbacks. This man's not gonna even make it to Iowa probably. But the actual, messaging and campaigns that happen, it's just massive amounts of disinformation and misinformation, and telling you that you're not going to be able to keep your lights on because your taxes are going to be so high. And that's how in Illinois we still have this, regressive flat tax system, despite the fact that more people would have been paying less in taxes if we had actually passed that initiative. So he's, and just not even capable of doing this messaging, right?
And let's not speed past the fact that the most Christian candidate is espousing what is almost the least Christian position on something like this, and he's selling himself as the pure religious man going into Iowa, which is a pretty evangelical state, especially for the Midwest, and selling that and that it is a position that really does not mesh with what we think of as real Christian. Let's go back to some of these numbers numbers, though, and why not only is it not Christian, not only is it not politically savvy, it's also wrong. Data from a few years ago showed us that the 1% is taking in exponentially more money than those in lower income tiers. In 2019, the richest 1% of Americans will collect more than $1 in every $5 of income in the United States and will pay a slightly higher share of the nation's overall federal, state, and local taxes, 24.1%. Meanwhile, the poorest fifth of Americans will receive only a small fraction of the nation's income, 2.8%, and as a result will pay a small fraction of the total federal, state, and local taxes. Also, those calculations don't take other types of taxes into account because lower income earners are impacted disproportionately by regressive taxes, such as what Ravana was talking about, as payroll taxes and sales taxes. So you're running into that. When we look at effective rates, the wealthiest among us are the best at skirting taxes as well. They have the facility, they're able to pay for the best people. The 25 richest Americans paid an effective federal income tax rate of 3.4% between 2014 and 2018. And some of the country's wealthiest billionaires paid no federal income taxes in some years. ProPublica reported this in 2021. And finally, over time, our tax system has become more and more favorable to the ultra-rich. Surprise, surprise. The U.S. tax system has grown less progressive over the last few decades, with tax legislation such as the 2017 tax cuts, which I'll point out many people in the Republican Party want to make permanent, and Jobs Act enacting large cuts for the rich and corporations. The average top marginal tax rate for the rich stood at 81% between 1944 to 1981, compared with just 37% for the highest earners today. So you look at these numbers and you see that these talking points that they espouse about how it really isn't true that they pay the lion's share of our taxes. Well, that's not really true.
Guys, 3.4%. And Pence says it's too much. It's too much. And all of you know this in your bones, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, left, right, it doesn't matter. You know the rich use their accountants to try to avoid taxes as much as humanly possible. Nowadays, MAGA even brags about it, even though they're not rich necessarily at all, right? Because they're a huge percentage of the voting base, and so they're probably mostly just like us economically, right? But they go, yes, I want the rich to pay less than 3.4%. Really? So look, this is why Pence is a bad politician, as Ravana and Michael have been saying, because Trump at least knows to pretend that he's for the average guy. That's why he goes into the McDonald's and says, hey, I'm buying everybody Big Macs, right? He goes into another restaurant and says, everything's on me, then runs out and doesn't pay the bill. Okay, he literally did that. Anyways, but he knows to pretend to be a populist. Whereas, I mean, here, I'm going to read a comment from one of our members.
We can't just punish his honesty, I guess, right? I mean, you know, like he is so stupidly honest in this case.
Yeah, Throat Goat Dragon in our member section said, Mike Pence is a scarecrow stuffed with donor money that an RNC staffer found in an Indiana cornfield. And that's about right. So, and look, yesterday we were giving Mike Pence credit for standing up to Trump on January 6th. And explaining what the Constitution actually says to a Republican voter. And today, we're giving him discredit. And so most people then ask, because they're used to American media, so wait, do you guys like Pence or don't like Pence? Which side are you biased on? No, we're not. No, we're telling you things that are true. When Mike Pence says January 6th was a disaster and totally unconstitutional ask of Donald Trump, that is correct. When he says the rich are paying too much, the poor rich, we need to cut them another break, that is not true. So you need to use your judgment to figure out when they're saying things that are true and not true, and not just go, okay, I'm 100% against or 100% for. All right.
One thing I want to point out and add to this, I don't know if Ray, you wanted to say something else, but you know, these tax cuts that Pence alluded to in 2017, the Trump tax cuts, Pence wants to make these permanent. So many Republicans, as I mentioned, want to make this permanent. They expire in 2025. 2025 is the second year or the first year of the next administration. So if you're not happy about this stuff, these people are out there saying, no, 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 we want our money. We want our money. And that's an important, I don't think it's possible to overstate how important that is as a part of the next campaign.
Ray, last word?
Yeah, I was just going to say that Donald Trump is really, really lucky that all of these bozos and idiots are the ones running against him in this primary, because we're not even that close to Iowa and he's already solidified the Republican nomination.
Yeah. I'm worried about it. Yes. All right, guys, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, the DeSantis team, this time his wife, with an even more vicious ad against the LGBTQ community. We'll talk about it when we return. All right, back during the social break here. Let's go to Twitch now. The It Dragon says, I'm glad Cenk is talking on this. Tired of all the left flamethrowing each other. It's now become inevitable, guys. It's part of the new media ecosystem because, and it's now happening on the right too, like Candace Owens and Steven Crowder, and everybody's fighting each other on the right, everybody's fighting each other on the left, because when you attack the folks that have big name recognition, the algorithm rewards you. And now the communities start to reward you, and it's become a giant soap opera. I watched a couple other left-wing shows. And to be fair, just a smidge, right? I'm sure that they do 1,000 other things, right? But whenever I tuned in, they were talking about soap operas, and so nobody, like, we've forgotten policy. We have all of these winning issues. Public option polls at 70%. Paid higher minimum wage never loses a ballot measure, never lost one. Wins overwhelmingly in the red states. Nobody's talking about any of it. Nobody's in Congress talking about it. None of our pundits are focusing on it. Just nonstop soap operas. All right, Re918 says, how's your hair not 100% gray, Michael? I lose my S watching your videos. Talking to the MAGA guys, obviously. He's got good gray hair in there.
Yeah, there are a couple in there, yeah.
Okay, Jana Midwest says, I'm so happy that I found TYT, everyone connected, and the larger TYT family. It's good to feel like there are people that get it. Thank you, we appreciate it, Jana. Sonic Screwdragon says, Cenk, I was pretty upset after listening to Benny's video, but I have to admit that you've eased my mind a bit. I still dislike some of the things that you've said in the past, but you're absolutely right that the point is to have the conversation. Thank you for saying what you did. And by the way, guys, unlike our critics, I don't say that when you, like, I have a disagreement with some of you, maybe even on some issues, many of you, like for example, affirmative action, right? That I am definitely right and you are definitely wrong and you are not allowed to speak. No, I have hosts that speak out all the time. In fact, I read an op-ed that we're trying to get in the paper for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. She made great points, and one of the things I was like, oh, that's such a good point. Maybe we should talk it out, right? So, yeah, everybody has to keep an open mind, and definitely including me. We just don't have to necessarily agree every time. All right, so nutritionist Liz in the YouTube member section says, happy birthday, sister of the day, Anna. Happy birthday to us. So it is Anna Kasparian's birthday today, so happy birthday to her. James Thompson says, since the pandemic, I've been a supporter. Thanks for the eye openers, appreciate it. Leo writes in, Cenk, all the drama bores me almost to tears, so all I'm gonna say is that I believe in what you're trying to build. The mission is what matters. The same thing I said with Just Democrats. Eyes on the prize. If we pass bills, that affects people's lives. If we don't pass bills, then this was all for show and nothing got done. Okay, Margaret Holland Coffey says, you're always fair. There are too many who make a decision and then come up with justification that is not principled. You have been principled. That can be confusing to some. Thank you for saying that, Margaret, appreciate it. And the Crazy Owl says, bravo, Cenk. Appreciate that as well. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Michael Schur, Ray Vana with you guys. Make sure you're checking out Ray Vana on Rebel Headquarters. And Kurt Vaughn is also with us because Kurt just joined and became a member. We appreciate it. Everybody can do likewise at tyt.com/join. Michael's got more news.
Well, the trivia question is, what was the first story done when Kurt Vaughn became a member? And that's this one. It's the Casey DeSantis story. The First Lady of Florida doubled down. I'd hate that term, but she did double down on what her husband had said and what is being talked about as an undeniably, quote, undeniably homophobic ad. Just so you know, this is the ad that Ron DeSantis ran.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens. Psych!
Congratulations, Ron DeSantis. Mission accomplished. You win.
I've watched a lot of political ads. I even used to review them here on the Young Turks. We did something called 2012, and we were reviewing the ads, political ads, on that segment back in 2012. So, which is why it was called 2012. I've never seen one as bizarre as that. I don't think it's probably not true. It's a little hyperbole. But Casey DeSantis, the governor's wife, she agreed. She had a chance to say this was extreme and this was strange, but no, she said this was right. And here is a little bit of the ad that she has out now supporting her husband, Ron.
In America, we've witnessed a lot and put up with enough.
You guys gotta go.
Wait, let's go. He is arresting her for being on a public playground. Her kids are here. We've been forced into silence. We've been told that we must deny truth, back down, and look the other way. Enough is enough. When you come after our kids, we fight back. Because there's nothing we won't do to protect our children. They're not yours.
These are our kids.
Our nation's children are all our children.
We will not allow you to exploit their innocence to advance your agenda. We are no longer silent. We are united. And we have finally found our fighter.
It's July of 2023. The election's in November of 2024. Have fun, folks. This is a tweet that Casey DeSantis sent out along with this video. You saw the mothers being referenced. We will not allow you to exploit the innocence of our children to advance your agenda. When you come after our kids, we fight back. We are no longer silent. We are united. We are mamas for DeSantis, and we will elect Ron DeSantis. She had an event as well in Iowa, with mothers and grandmothers in Iowa for the election, where she said this: a lot of bad things are going on. I can tell you what Governor DeSantis has done. He will lead the charge. He will clean house, and he will ensure that parents have the right to be able to make the decisions that they think are best for their family. This is a really strange 1-2 punch on an issue that is, I would say, galvanizing a lot of Republican voters. But I think it is distancing themselves from independent voters who they will need if they want to win the nomination in the presidency.
Yeah, so what DeSantis is saying is, I'm going to try to outright wing Trump and I think the base despises the LGBTQ community, and so I'm going to go straight into the teeth of that hatred and welcome it and try to build my campaign around it. So it's an interesting strategy, and I'm sorry, Republicans, but it's not impossible that it'll work, right? His problem isn't that he's going too anti-gay for Republican voters, in my opinion, okay? I think his problem is that he does it in a ham-handed way. and it's not fun like Trump does it, etc. They both have the same policy issues, basically, right? But DeSantis is planting his flag, if you will, and saying, no, I am the more hateful candidate. So, for example, that first ad by DeSantis, it was both the most homophobic and the most homoerotic ad I have ever seen in politics. I don't know that it was the strangest. I do remember Mike Gravel throwing a rock into a lake for no reason.
I corrected myself, yeah. But it didn't get homoerotic to me. Well, go ahead.
Anyways, we'll get back into that in a second. And by the way, I will say in that ad, they have a clip of me saying, congratulations, Ron DeSantis, you win, mission accomplished. Of course, they didn't have the rest of that clip. Right after that, I said, congratulations on being the most racist Republican in the race. Oh, you didn't put that in the ad. Oh, it's interesting how you deceive people. So like, I don't know who that person was being arrested that was in the second ad in the playground. Who cares? It could have been a left winger. They just take things that are totally out of context and make it seem like they're arresting moms at playgrounds for what?
Right, and the Biden administration is sending cops to playgrounds to arrest people for being in the playground.
Yeah, and so the Casey DeSantis ad is also horrifically homophobic against the LGBTQ community overall, against trans people, etc. And so then if they say, oh, but they hide behind the kids. So that's their thing. They use the kids as shields, right? Oh, we care about the kids. Do you? Then why aren't you all doing ads about the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts? The two largest organizations with the biggest case of pedophilia. Why aren't you doing ads about Donald Trump, who was really good friends with Jeffrey Epstein and said that he knows that Jeffrey likes it young and laughed about him, okay? So, so you don't care about the kids. You just want to attack the LGBTQ community. And so now right wingers, last thing on this, now go to Rayvon on it and then we'll come back around. Anyway, so when the Republicans say, no, we don't hate gay people. We just, I mean, look, we're worried that our kids are going to be exposed to gay people. They're going to know that they exist in the world. So we're purging all the books. Now, if I told you, no, I don't hate broccoli. I just don't want our kids seeing broccoli. And I want to purge all the books that have broccoli in them. And if the kids are exposed to broccoli, oh my God, it'll be terrible. And then I told you, no, I love broccoli. You'd be like, wait, what? No, you don't. You just told me how terrible and evil and sinful that it was. And that you're worried that your kids would be exposed to it for like a second, right? No, Republicans just say it. You don't like gay people and you want to discriminate against them and you think there's something wrong with them. That's why you keep saying, I don't want my kids exposed to them. So sorry, I don't agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone in the LGBTQ community. So like, oh yeah, I've got kids. Would you let them find out that there are gay people in the world? Yeah, you know who told them? Me. Okay, because I'm an actual parent and I teach my kids about reality and I'm not worried that they're gonna turn into something. Everybody already has their own nature. It's just a matter of finding it. Rayvana.
Yeah, Cenk, just quickly to your point about it being both homophobic and homoerotic. I always say that homophobes think about gay sex more than I do, and I'm literally gay. I mean, come on now. It's all that's on their mind and running through their head every day. They're photoshopping Ron DeSantis to look oiled up and muscly shirtless. Let's get real about what's going on here. But I think that what's particularly evil about constantly, you framed it as using the kids as shields, is that it promotes a level of violence, because I think in a lot of people's minds, the worst crime someone can commit is a sexual crime against a child, sexual violence against a child. And I think a lot of people feel, rightfully angry at those situations. So if you can frame an entire community of people as just by existing, committing sexual violence against children, then you can, justify to your base's minds doing violence against those people. Which is why we've seen this uptick in hate crimes against the queer community. We covered last week, I believe it was, a story on here about how more and more members of the queer community, myself included, have been feeling less safe in public, less safe in spaces we previously felt safe in. And you're seeing literal violence. You're seeing the Club Q shooting. You saw the stabbings in the gender studies classroom in Canada. So I think that when we talk about these issues, it's important to call out just what the natural, not necessarily natural, but what they're trying to evoke in their base. It's fear, but it's fear to an extreme extent that literally leads to horrific violence.
So, that's true. And the violence pervades, and the Republicans keep stoking it. And the Republicans also still somehow have the log cabin Republicans. I don't understand it. It is both oxymoronic and I would say moronic. And they have their own take on this. Their president, Charles Moran, let's not be careful, joined CNN yesterday as well to argue against DeSantis in the ad, saying the post attacking former President Donald Trump's links to the LGBT community completely destroys the argument that DeSantis is more electable than Trump. Here's Moran.
Well, just hearing his opening words talking about injecting gender ideology into the debate, the opening lines of that ad that his campaign retweeted have President Trump addressing the nation after the Pulse nightclub shooting. I don't know how addressing a national tragedy just miles from Governor DeSantis' then congressional district is injecting gender ideology. Look, it's very clear, and we're seeing it from across the conservative spectrum. Everyone agrees that this ad was misdirected, it was misplanned, and it was not setting the right tone. The Republican Party and the conservative movement have moved beyond a lot of some of these divisive social issues. And there are truly threats out there from the extreme left and elements of the LGBT community who's trying to impose radical gender theory. But this video went in a totally different direction.
He talks about it's not setting the right tone. What tone is he expecting out of the DeSantis campaign or any of the Republican campaigns on gay rights issues?
Yeah, he's basically saying, look, I mean, we started the fire of hatred against gay people, but then I didn't realize it was going to consume me.
Right.
I thought it was just going to affect other gay people and I was just going to get tax cuts. Well, sad day for you, it didn't turn out that way. Of course, when you start a fire like this, it consumes everyone. And so I'm going to say one more thing on this, which is, look, guys, there's all these old tricks that have been around, some of them for thousands of years. So you might say, hey, the donors acting as puppeteers of the politicians is totally true, and it is, right? But if you say someone Jewish is acting as a puppeteer, that is a terrible history. So that's what the fascists in Germany used, etc., before they massacred people. If you say, hey, black people on average are more athletic or larger, stronger, etc., that sounds like it might be good if you don't know the context. But the context is, it used to be used to say, no, they're more animalistic and hence have less rights, etc. So it has an awful history. So now when you hear the talking points that they have about kids, now that has a very long history. So whenever an outside group was going to be attacked, the number one tool that the hateful people used was kids. So what would they say about Jews for thousands of years? Before the pogroms, the Holocaust, etc., they would say, they're coming for your kids, and they drink the blood of Christian children, okay? And that's called blood libel. By the way, QAnon brought that back. Who do you think they mean when they say they drink the blood of the kids and et cetera, right? So, but they have also historically used it against the LGBTQ community throughout history. Oh no, I don't mind gay people. I'm just worried about the children. Now wait, who commits more pedophilia, straight people or gay people? Straight people do. How come you're not worried about straight people? I thought you were worried about the children. No, it's both a shield and a weapon against the gay community, against the entire LGBTQ community. It's a trick as old as time, so please don't fall for it. Okay, all right. Ray, you want to say one more thing?
Yeah, I just want to say it's really funny to watch this man sit up there and literally do the meme of I'm voting for the leopards eating your face off party, and then, oh, I never thought the leopards would eat my face off. And it just immediately reminds me of Dave Rubin doing his far right grift. And then when he comes out, and should be a happy moment in his life, talking about how him and his husband are adopting their children, immediately his new audience starts calling them pedophiles. Because, and I just want to say this as a member of the community to all of you queers who think that because you are preaching this right-wing message that you will be saved from their fascism. You've got another thing coming, and you should heed the warning that you're seeing right now and get away from it, because you can say, oh, we're here to stand up, we're gays against groomers, we're log cabin Republicans. But as soon as they accomplish, excising trans people from the community, do you think they're not coming for you next? And how could you possibly think that? You'd have to be the most naive person in the world. So I hope that they're all getting their bag, because something much worse is coming down the road.
Yeah. We got to head that off. We got to win elections, and we got to make sure that we get rights for everyone, 100% equal rights. All right, Ravana, thank you. Everybody check her out on Rebel Headquarters where she does great videos. Michael, thank you for being on the road. Thank you for being in here. We appreciate it, brother. Check out his videos on the Young Turks channel. All the interviews that he does with MAGA, unbelievable. YouTube.com/TheYoungTurks. You're gonna love it / be horrified by it. Okay, when we come back, we have another amazing hour, and including, by the way, here we go again in Virginia. Daily Wire complains that they're not hating the gay community enough, so the governor springs into action to make sure that they spread more hatred. All right, we'll talk about that and more when we come back.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. When educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power, it makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America.
Listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
Drop it. All right, power panel. Jay Huger, Ben Glebe, Jackson White. Ben and Jackson are on Rebel headquarters. You can check them out there. You're gonna love their videos. And also with us, this Bish Annoyed and Oscar Estrada. Oscar actually upgraded through the join button, and this Bish became a member. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Everybody can join by hitting that join button, obviously. All right, Ben, you got news for us. Take it away.
We got a story about this Bish in Virginia, standing for what's right, never caving to pressure. Not in Virginia. The Virginia Department of Health offered resources for LGBTQ kids on its website. But mere hours after the Daily Wire simply asked Governor Glenn Youngkin's administration about the site, all of those resources were gone. Sorry, kids. Your governor no likey being challenged. We've learned about this thanks to the Virginia Mercury and the Washington Post, who obtained internal emails from the Virginia Department of Health. Here's what the Daily Wire was so upset by. A reporter at the Daily Wire questioned two programs, an initiative called Queer Kid Stuff, an LGBTQ+ and social justice website for kids and families, and Q-Chat Space, which offered live, professionally facilitated chats and online support groups for teens. Hours after that inquiry, those programs and all of the others listed on the resources for LGBTQ youth webpage were gone. In a twist that no one could have seen coming, sarcasm, the Daily Wire still published an article attacking the state for offering those resources. Headline: Virginia Department of Health promotes Queer Kid Stuff, chat for LGBTQ+ identifying teens. When asked for comment by the Washington Post, Youngkin spokesperson said, in Virginia, the governor will always reaffirm a parent's role in their child's life. Children belong to their parents, not the state. The governor supports providing resources that are age appropriate. However, the government should not facilitate anonymous conversations between adults and children without a parent's approval. Sexualizing children against a parent's wishes doesn't belong on a taxpayer-supported website. What a great, direct, clear quote, except who is sexualizing children? No one. They just made that up. Queer people are allowed to have an identity. Just because it don't match yours don't mean it's not okay, obviously. And this attack isn't limited to just the queer community. Youngkin's administration has at least 3 times in the year and a half since he took office, removed information from the website without consulting its own subject matter experts. Records show stripping public health resources on abortions, sexual health, and pregnancy, among other issues. But the good news is, if you happen to have the exact life that Governor Youngkin has, with the exact priorities and desires and the exact personality traits, then all of the information you need for your life will be safe on the website. You can rest easy. That's where we're at in Virginia.
Yep. So this is what right-wing media does. They go around going, okay, let's figure out which state and municipality doesn't hate gay people enough. Let's look and look and look at this. Is anyone helping gay people? Anyone? Go, we found one. Okay, let's attack. Now, wait, this is something that is a resource for people who want to find out more. And by the way, a lot of them are teenagers. They can just go online. It's like so in the sense, I'm glad that Virginia was providing these resources for when people need help, etc. But it's not like if you shut it down, like they can't find other information. So that's also good news, but it's also bad news in that Republicans don't get it. You're not going to be able to shut down the internet. You're not going to be able to shut down human existence. They're like, don't tell the kids about how there's gay people. Oh, what if they turn gay? And then you say, well, it sounds like you hate gay people. And they're like, no, I don't. I want their votes, so I'm going to pretend that I don't hate them, and I'm going to promise them tax cuts. But the minute we're in office, like Youngkin in Virginia, if some bullies from the Daily Wire contact me and say, hey, you're being a quarter way decent to some of your citizens. Whoa, man, I'm gonna be on a warpath because we have to protect the children. What if they find out that there's gay people in the world? Well, number one, there is, so they would become educated. Number two, so what? Well, the reason why we're having this conversation is something that the right wing and honestly the mainstream media is never frank about. The reason we're having the conversation is because the right wing thinks that being gay is wrong. It's sinful. And they don't want their kids becoming gay. They don't know, no, it's genetic. They're born a certain way. It is what it is. But nope. They say, I don't want it. I don't want that happening for my kids. And you have to respect that. So I get it. And we give kids as a sensitive topic as to what the parents, what kind of autonomy they have, et cetera. But just admit that you're saying, I don't want my kids to learn about gay people or become, in their minds, become gay because I don't like gay people. I think their existence is wrong. Okay, well, at least I would be honest because that's definitely what you're doing here. Because Daily Wire didn't say, hey, we have evidence of this platform or this website being used to sexualize children. We don't have any evidence that any child had anything wrong done to them. We have a world of evidence that the Catholic Church has abused thousands of kids, but we never talk about it. We don't care at all. We never talk about it because we don't want to demonize the Catholic Church. We want to demonize gay people. And here we have absolutely no evidence that anything has ever gone wrong, but we want to shut it down because we hate gay people. So Ben Shapiro, Glenn Youngkin, all Republicans, all right-wing media pundits, why don't you be decent for the first time in your life, at least be honest enough to say you don't like those people and just stop lying because you're the most obvious liars in the world. All right, Jackson.
Yeah, I continue to be amazed, I guess ironically, at how determined the Republican Party is to run away from just the idea and the thought of the democratic process. Because at the end of the day, Glenn Youngkin and everyone who made the decision to take this off of the website could have simply ignored the Daily Wire. They could have ignored them, or they could have pointed out what you said. Y'all have no evidence and no facts to back up what you're saying. You're just whining and griping. Because at the end of the day, people are gay. It's not a novel thing. People have been gay for quite some time. As far back as we can look, it's not new. And given the fact that millennials and Gen Z and even Gen X, the younger the generation you go, the more people just kind of generally accept that the LGBTQ community is alive and well and it ain't going nowhere. And there's really nothing weird about it. It's just a part of being alive. So at the end of the day, like I said, they could have ignored this. And you even see this with like Ron DeSantis, who's like the epitome of how can we alienate people as hard as we can. I think Shank, you were in one commercial he just put out where they were trying to make it look like Donald Trump he supports the queer community too hard, so we can't have that. And then his wife Casey DeSantis put out another commercial that was like a minute and a half longer, because I guess she has a little bit more speaking and social skills, that doubled down and made it even worse. But Republicans more and more, they can't understand that you have to include people or else you're going to have to become more authoritarian. But it appears that authoritarianism is just what they're going to keep on doubling down on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say real quick, we talked about those DeSantis ads in the first hour of today's show. And in case you haven't seen it, they have a clip of me saying, congratulations, Ron DeSantis, you win. They did not include the next sentence. You win on being the most racist Republican in the race. Oh yeah, I wonder why they didn't include that part. Okay, Ben.
Yeah, and I think everything you guys said is right. And I also just wish still that we on the left could find a little bit more nuance on some of these issues where we aren't feeding into these right-wing talking points. Because I do think that, when I dive deeper into these resources that were being criticized by the Daily Wire, in my opinion, there were some things that were maybe a little inappropriate to be exposing to children as young as 3 and 4, which was the rating on some of these videos on YouTube, like what is transitioning, I don't think is something a 3 and 4 year old needs to be discussing or made aware of, or telling classrooms that they shouldn't use the words boys and girls anymore. I think that's extreme and that's too much. And a more nuanced response could have been to research those platforms themselves in the Virginia Department of Health, and perhaps altered the list of very important resources that they had for young people, instead of just being like, oh, we don't want to be looked like as though we're Bud Light, and just erasing all the resources entirely and leaving their young people hanging to be able to find whatever it is they find on the internet, as they, of course, Janky pointed out, will be able to do, whether there's government approved resources or not. So it's just giving up on and abandoning a whole community of people that could use some direction from the government.
Okay, so Ben, that's interesting. Let me agree and disagree on parts. So number one, I'm a parent, so don't worry about 3 to 4 year olds going to find out videos from the Virginia website about transitioning or not transitioning. They have no interest in that. All they have interest in is YouTube, okay? And so they're not gonna go there anyway, and if they like, really, they're going to the Virginia website.
Those videos are on their YouTube page, just to be specific. Okay, so anybody could find something on YouTube.
But Ben, that's my point, which is that as a parent of kids who are 10 and 12, I saw them go through the process. I saw what they watch, right? Whether it's on a Virginia government website, which is hilarious, nobody would ever go there unless you're a teenager and you're wondering about your identity and you want to just talk to someone and talk things through, etc. But even if they were to go on YouTube and stumble upon the Virginia thing, they could also stumble upon 1,000 other things. And for the right wingers out there, guys, you have to do parenting. I'm sorry, but you do, and that's on you. So they're always like, oh my God, my kids, what if somebody else talks to them? And what if they find out about this? Yeah, they're gonna find out about the world, and then you give them the values that you want, and even if you have values that I don't agree with. So now, but the point I'll agree with Ben on is, look, if you're starting to talk to elementary school students about, hey, we're not calling people boys and girls anymore, you're needlessly going into losing ground, right? Don't do that, because then they're gonna use that to defeat you in elections. And that is not core, right? Core is, hey, Republicans saying, no, I don't want my kids exposed to the fact that gay people even exist, right? And because I think there's something inherently sinful about being gay. I loathe that. That is a core human rights issue, right? What we call boys and girls is not a core human rights issue. And so I know some people disagree with that, but that is also not very popular. If we start calling boys and girls different names, people are gonna get freaked out by that. And you say, well, they shouldn't. Okay, I hear you, but then you're gonna lose an election. They're gonna have more people like Youngkin get in. That doesn't mean you compromise on core rights. It means you're smart and strategic about how you play this politics. I mean, look, the Daily Wire guys and the right wing is running circles around people. As much as I loathe them, they're winning these races, and they're got this toxic ideology all over the media, right? And they're like, hate, and they're winning on that, because whenever they go find anything that the American people, because the American people want gay marriage to be legal, they want gay rights, they want trans rights, the polling clearly indicates it. That's why the Ben Shapiro's of the world and the Matt Walshes and all those toxic people over there, they dig in and dig in and dig in until they find a nugget, and they're like, oh, some people in that community want to call boys something else and girls something else, and we think that'll freak the average American out. And then that's when, unfortunately, to Ben's point, some of our activists jump in and go, yes, let's go and lose on that losing ground. They found a losing ground for us to fight on. Let's go right there. No, don't go on the losing ground. We have tons of winning ground. Go on the winning ground, get in power, and then do the right thing and give everybody equal rights. And so, look, bottom line on all of this is that those sites in no way, shape, or form sexualize children. And the whole point of using children in this case is not because they're worried about the children. It's because they want to use your kids as both shields and weapons to drive hatred towards that community. Jackson, last word.
I mean, pretty much I think one of the important things that you pointed out is really picking what ground that you want to win on. And at the end of the day, focusing on things like wages, our healthcare system, education, stuff that really impacts everybody is how we're really going to move the ball forward, not just in federal elections, but especially state and community and local elections. But yeah, I think my final thought is that when it comes to stuff like this, you show more strength by not backing down. If you didn't take that off of your website, you would have looked stronger, even if people don't agree with you. Target fell victim to this as well. Sometimes you just gotta ignore it. If people are like, we don't like that you're supporting gay people, well, that's nice. You're probably still gonna be in my line at Starbucks, so get over it. And Glenn Youngkin could have done the exact same thing. But the Republican Party is, completely dominated by, in a lot of ways, online.
Yep. All right, we got to take a quick break here, guys. When we come back, we got more news for you guys, including, there's poison in our water. That's great. And Elon Musk turns out to be a socialist. Huh, interesting. We'll come back and talk about it. All right, back on Social Break. Let me give you some YouTube member comments in the super chat. Kristen Eckert writes in, I agree just wanting to call people names will get us to lose. But what's your idea on why that works for a lot of the right wing? Example, the groomer talk. Kristen, that's such a great question. So, and you'll see me trash talk Republicans, you've seen it all throughout today's show. So where's the distinction, where's the line? And almost nobody ever asks that, and that's like I said, terrific question. So guys, when you're trying to win, or you're in the battlefield of ideas and you're doing a general talk show, you're trying to win people over to your idea and your side. And you wanna make sure that people understand the other side is bad, okay? You don't wanna lie about it, you don't wanna mislead people. You just wanna make it clear, like here's what they believe and this is why I think it's wrong, right? And there you could be pretty harsh because you're trying to win over independents, maybe some of the right wing, that's very unlikely, but mainly independents, and say, hey, we're the better side, right? But when you're going to talk to people on a one-on-one basis, or sometimes in a completely different context, and you say, here, look, I'll give you an example. It's an example I was going to use later, but like I went to do this shoot a couple of weekends ago with a mixed family, lovely matriarch of the family. She's a Republican, very nice person, but loves Trump and has these views that I think are a little antiquated. I'm being kind, right? And at one point I said, I grew up Muslim, but I'm an atheist now. She's like, well, thank God, right? So now that's a bigoted thing to say. That's, oh, it sucks that you're a Muslim, right? But if I went in there and they said, you bigot, she would have totally put up the defense shield. She would have stopped the conversation, she would have felt terrible, and she wouldn't want to engage in that conversation. That is not the right place to call names. Instead, you say like, well, I could tell you about my Muslim family and my aunt, who's probably very similar to your aunt, and et cetera, et cetera. There's different strategies for different times, and we all have to use our human judgment to get there. All right, Global TV 123, which one is the right one, right? Global TV 123 says, I love TYT, I watch 5 hours per day, never get enough, thank you. On to Super Chat, Chasing the Dragon says, preach it, Cenk, brother. Pitchfork's Dragon says, when your progressive audience disagrees that your stance is progressive, we're gonna tell you, smartest audience on the planet. That's absolutely right. If you don't agree with something we're saying on air, that's totally fine. And you tell us and I read it. That's how it's supposed to work. Not, okay, now we hate each other because we disagree 5%, et cetera. But it's up to everybody to make their own decisions. Lego Fab says, I love TYT for its honesty, and it's sad to see you and Annie get torched for a minor disagreement. If this is what the left is now, then I want out. Let this be the gray Jedi of news platforms. No, it is not what the left is. So do not, like the right wing doesn't own the American flag. America is for all of us, okay? And Twitter activists do not own the left. They are almost always wrong on the polling and where the left actually stands. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Ben, and Jackson with you guys. And also, look at all these new wonderful people. Kevin Randall, DeLorenzo Ent, Amishi Sangvi, and Jerry Reese. We appreciate you all. You guys are amazing and make the show possible. Ben's got more news.
Think you don't drink enough water now? Well, there's a good chance the water from your tap contains harmful chemicals. Bottoms up. A new study has revealed nearly half of US faucets likely contain so-called forever chemicals. How fun does that sound? That can lead to cancer and other health issues. That plus water doesn't even have tasty sugar in it, so it's another negative. Here's more on the study. Researchers with the US Geological Survey described the study as the first nationwide effort to test for PFAS in tap water. PFAS, I'm not sure which way you say it, I've heard it both ways, from private sources in addition to regulated ones. It builds on previous scientific findings that the chemicals are widespread, showing up in consumer products as diverse as non-stick pans, that's where we first discovered it in Teflon, food packaging, and water-resistant clothing, and making their way now into water supplies. Scientists tested for 32 PFAS compounds, most of the ones detectable through available methods, but thousands of others are believed to exist, just can't be spotted with current technology. And even just testing for 32, by the way, of the 12,000, the results were not good. They continue. The types most often found were PFBs, PFHXs, and PFOA. Also making frequent appearances was PFOs, one of the most common nationwide. These chemicals stay in the human body for years and do not degrade in the environment ever. Studies of lab animals have found potential links between PFAS chemicals and some cancers, including kidney and testicular. Ouch. Plus issues such as high blood pressure and low birth weight. It really doesn't matter whether we're talking either about large cities or small towns, private wells or public systems. The samples were taken between 2016 and 2021 in a range of locations, mostly residences, but also a few schools and offices. They include protected land such as national parks, residential and rural areas with no identified PFA sources, and urban centers with industry or waste sites known to generate PFAs. These forever chemicals are found in varying degrees in all of what I just mentioned a moment ago. Positive samples contain as many as 9 varieties, although most were closer to 2. The median concentration was around 7 parts per trillion for all 32 PFAS types, although for PFOA and PFOS, it was about 4 parts per trillion, the limit EPA has proposed for those 2 compounds. The heaviest exposures were in cities and near potential sources of the compounds, particularly in the eastern seaboard, Great Lakes and Great Plains urban centers, and Central and Southern California. Many of the tests, mostly in rural areas, found no PFAs. I am currently in Southern California and will put my water down now. There was no difference in PFAS exposure between samples from private wells and the public supply, which was very surprising, according to Kelly Smalling, a USGS hydrologist. Public water supplies are regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, while private wells are not. And because the USGS is a scientific research agency, the report makes no policy recommendations, but Kelly Smalling, who was Kelly Bigger before she started drinking the water, is the lead author of the study and said, the information can be used to evaluate risk of exposure and inform decisions about whether or not you want to treat your drinking water, get it tested, or get more information from your state. Here's the question, is the federal government doing anything? Back in March, the EPA proposed the first federal drinking water limits on 6 forms of PFAS out of the 12,000 and of per and polyfluorinated substances. A final decision will be made on that next year, but in some sort of good news, almost $10 billion was directed to help communities reduce PFAS and other chemical contaminants as part of the Biden administration's bipartisan infrastructure law, in hopes that hopefully you're gonna drink the water, folks. Do you hear me? That's no joke. Cenk?
Yeah, so hey, a little bit of credit to the Biden administration there, and that is good that they've allocated $10 billion to it. But overall, the problem with the government is that it does very little regulation. And so And the right wing is going, oh yeah, no way, man. They do too much regulation. All those laws trying to protect our kids and the drinking water and the air. We don't need those stinking protections. If they got forever chemicals given to us by big business, we love drinking it up. Like we love the vaccines from big business, and we thought that was great, and we should inject it into our body. And then the fact that it's in our water is even more terrific because we hate regulations. Wait, what? Okay, so no, there's a reason why regulations exist. So we don't have toxic forever chemicals in our water supply. And so they've got to do a lot more to get this stuff out because apparently literally half of us are drinking that water. And we know that those chemicals are very hard to get out, and we know that they cause cancer. That seems like kind of a giant issue. There's so many tiny issues in this country that we talk about 24/7. Hey, is the Eminem cartoon character sexy enough for Tucker Carlson? That became news for like months. Oh, there's poison in the drinking water that half of us and our kids drink. Not a big deal, barely a story. No, this is exactly what living under corporate rule looks like. We covered the forever chemicals a little while ago on the show, and it turns out, of course, the companies making them, not all of them, but a lot of them, knew for a long time ago that they were toxic and that you couldn't get them out once they entered the environment. Have there been great punishments for knowingly poisoning us? No, because corporations buy all the politicians and there's never any accountability. Jackson.
Well, yeah, I mean, thousands of PFAs, it's like we drinking cigarettes. And I'm up here in New Jersey, and you already know what's up with the New Jersey tap water. It smells like hose water. So, up here, and you got to think about how big of an issue it is and how much it impacts. I buy this, you know what I'm saying? How much do I spend on this a month? Quite a bit. That adds up for people, especially people who have kids or have different types of debilitating issues. We don't just drink the water, we cook with the water, we also shower with the water. We do all types of things with the water. We wash our clothing with the water. But you pointed out how really corporate America over the decades in their attempt to be cheap and to save money have just made all of our problems even more expensive to address. The levees in New Orleans that broke with Katrina wouldn't have broken if they would have just fixed them earlier on. It took a very long time to get lead out of many of the products. We knew that lead was poisonous for quite some time, but you got to keep the money rolling because we already got our infrastructure set up around lead. I can't remember the scientist's name who led the campaign to get that out of products. But it's human nature to be greedy and to take shortcuts. And we know time and time again that we're damaging ourselves. It's the same thing with oil. But how much more money do we have to spend now to address our infrastructure problems, whether it be the pipes or the roads or the levees? Every year, weather conditions get worse with hurricanes. Everything's on fire. Again, the people who are always talking about fiscal responsibility, now everything's more expensive. This is a problem such that next thing you know, half the population is diseased and sick, and now they can't participate in the job market. So 45% of Americans having poisonous water is a issue that literally would impact everything that we can do and participate in within society because we can't not have water.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask one last question in this case. Why are we paying for the cleanup? The companies that did the forever chemicals, they knew they were toxic and they already made the money from it. They took home billions of dollars. So why are we spending billions of dollars for the cleanup? Why don't we go get it from them? It's the cost of their product. They're saying, no, you pay the cost and I keep the profit. That's not really how capitalism works. And so what they've done is they've kidnapped the government and turned it into crony capitalism or corporatism so that we live under this corporate rule and there's nothing we can do about it. And they in the great words of Naomi Klein, they socialize the losses and privatize the gains. And so that's where we are with forever chemicals too. And unfortunately, since they bought all your politicians, almost no one's gonna fight for you.
I see what you're suggesting, Cenk. You're saying that these companies that made billions of dollars by putting forever chemicals into our society, they're not the ones paying for the cleanup. So we should probably give them billions of dollars in subsidies as well to help them a little more. I think it's a great idea.
That's usually how Washington works. Okay, but again, I'll give credit to the Biden administration for at least putting $10 billion into it because we do have to clean it up. There's no question about it. All right, we got to take a break here, guys. When we come back, we've got more news for you guys, including Elon Musk admitting that he's a socialist. That's a twist. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT Social Break. Let's go to Super Chat. Jay Barnett, thank you for the contribution. We appreciate you. How Blair you says, happy birthday, Anna. I've been inspired by her for so many years. She rocks, and so does the entire TYT community. Well, we appreciate all the birthday wishes for Anna, and she's out there enjoying it. Sherry says, in the beginning of the show, I talked about some of the disagreements that were happening recently. And she said, what did I miss? I appreciate the TYT community. I rarely disagree with you, but I respect you when we disagree. That is revolutionary, Sherry. That's exactly how we're supposed to be looking at it. Already on this show, we've disagreed a couple of times with the host, yet everyone has survived. JL says, this is my favorite kind of comment. Your own nephew, Hassan, says you and Anna are wrong in elevating this fight. Yelling at activists is not the progressive way. 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen. Yeah, no, Jay, I disagree with you. And are you ready for this? I disagree with Hassan. How could that be? My own nephew tells me that I'm wrong. You supposed to listen to your nephews? Is that a thing? I remember when I changed his diaper and now I have to listen to him? No. Look, we have conversations. Couldn't you use the same argument to him? Your own uncle disagrees with you. Why don't you listen, Hassan? Because he has his own mind and his own opinions. In fact, we used to do a whole show here where Haas and I would debate on capitalism, socialism, Marxism, communism, etc. You don't all have to agree. I know, revolutionary thought. Evan, New Jersey writes in, I have not missed a show since 2015. Half my wardrobe is TYT. Longtime Dragon Squad. I will stand with Cenk, Anna, JR, and Johnny Pie through thick and thin. TYT for life. Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. Have my closer, Dragon Squad too. Happy Warrior says, TYT is amazing. It's incredible you all continue to help out fellow progressives after being repeatedly betrayed. I hope you find folks that will talk to you when they disagree and not attack you on Twitter. We give people tons of opportunities. Yes, sometimes we were repaid in not great ways, but we're not gonna change that, which means that we're also going to continue to give everyone opportunities, even when they disagree. And I got to address Eclectic Miscellania, one of our great members. He disagrees a little bit, and so let's talk it through. I love you, Anna and TYT, but you and Michael disagree on strategies different. Some people, including longtime TYT fans, think you're attacking trans people's fundamental rights and their entire community. Please reach out and show that's not what TYT is about. So look, I got into. I was joke about fundamentalist Muslims. We're actually going to do a story about fundamentalist Muslims in a little bit. And the New York Times and others said that I'm anti-Muslim, right? No, you couldn't agree and disagree in different parts and not be anti-Muslim, anti-trans. Slight disagreements doesn't mean you hate everybody. But if you say, hey, look, they think it's part of fundamental rights, whether it's the trans community, the Muslim community, etc., and you don't think it's part of the fundamental rights, whether you're in that community or not. So, but then Eclectic, who wins? No, that's when we go, oh, I hear you, I love you, brothers and sisters, but we agree to disagree, okay? That doesn't go, oh, the person who demands the most is the one who is by definition correct. That doesn't make sense. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Ben, and Jackson with you guys. Ben, take it away.
You got it. Elon Musk is a free speech absolutist, as he has put it, but also caves to Chinese censorship. And the serial entrepreneur has now signed a pledge to abide by, quote, core socialist values Do the contradictions ever stop? Tesla CEO Elon Musk has signed on to a letter pledging his company's commitment to China's, quote, core socialist values in order to continue operations in the world's most populous country. Chinese authorities had demanded that electric vehicle automakers alter their behavior after Tesla and others in the industry slashed their prices last year in order to choke out smaller competitors, which Chinese officials characterized as reckless. About a third of Tesla's sales come in the Chinese market, and Tesla was the only non-Chinese firm to sign onto the letter, according to the Financial Times. Musk has become a kind of hero on the American right, as we know, since purchasing Twitter last year, which he has promised to turn into a haven for free speech. But the billionaire executive's business entanglements with China have threatened that status. During a trip to China last month, Musk described the United States and China's economies as conjoined twins and expressed opposition to efforts to decouple the world's two major powers. Musk has praised the Chinese regime for, quote, the economic prosperity, close quote, that has achieved in Twitter replies to state media accounts, and told the Financial Times last year that he believes Taiwan should be controlled by the Chinese Communist Party as a special administrative zone. The suggestion was quickly celebrated by Chinese ambassador to the United States, Qin Gang. People on Twitter who normally have a very calm, rational response to things flipped out. How can you denounce a woke mind virus one day and then turn around and pledge to the Chinese government you will uphold core socialist values? Asked National Review's Jim Garrity. Self-proclaimed free speech absolutist Elon Musk's Tesla has joined Chinese automakers in pledging to enhance core socialist values, a term that generally denotes not criticizing the Chinese government, observed Media Matters' Matthew Gertz. So there's a little more of the story in a moment, but I would love to hear our my co-host takes on this. Cenk?
Yeah, so first of all, I love the story because it gets the right wing to accidentally look into their own beliefs, right? So they're like, Elon Musk is a right-wing god. He's gonna let us say all these right-wing things, whether they're hateful or not. I love that guy. Core socialist values. I do not like socialists. I don't know what it means. I've never even bothered to look it up in a dictionary, but I know I hate it. Oh, does not compute, love Elon, hate Elon, does not compute. I love to see that, right? And to be fair to the right wing, no one in media ever defines what socialism is. Almost, not just the right wing media, but mainstream media are always talking about socialism and usually spit right afterwards. They're like, socialist, Bernie said, right? And they're like, wait, you didn't even say what it was. And do you mean socialist as in communist? Like North Korea, which is just a dictatorship? Or do you mean socialist like Finland? Because Finland's pretty lovely. Denmark's like the happiest place on earth, literally, right? So what do you mean socialist? So I like that their heads are exploding, trying to figure out for the first time in their lives what words mean, or at least that particular word. But I have to be honest with you guys. Is Elon Musk a socialist? No, he signed on to the core socialist values so he could sell more Teslas in China, which is ironically very capitalist. Jackson.
Yes, that's perfect. I was actually going to point out, like, other than China's government being all encompassing and all up in everybody's business and being above the law, the country itself economically is extremely capitalist. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got where they are so quickly, let alone the fact that they have thousands of year history, what have you. But you pointed it out. Elon Musk is just trying to make money. And it always cracks me up because Elon Musk has always been a deeply unserious and ridiculous person. Ideas of putting people on rockets that have a 1 in 100 chance of exploding to travel around the world faster. 1 in 100 chance of exploding means a whole lot of people gonna die. Your rockets be exploding every time you try to go to the moon. So, Elon Musk is just a deeply unserious man. The whole Twitter debacle, whatever. He's gonna continue to do whatever he can to keep his brand alive and to save himself financially. But essentially, all Elon Musk really is a mascot. The genius Jimmy Neutron who's gonna save the world from everything. Clearly, that's not who he is. His brand continues to crumble. But, I just love seeing anytime Elon Musk's legacy and legend just gets shown to be a complete lie, because it is.
And he's a confused man as well, despite or in the face of this very confused legacy. Because obviously we all know he is a pretty right-wing man these days, said he supports DeSantis for president, helped launch his campaign disastrously, but has previously posted on Twitter that he is a socialist back in 2018. Quote, by the way, I'm actually a socialist. Just not the kind that shifts resources from the most productive to least productive. Pretending to do good while actually causing harm. True socialism seeks greatest good for all. Musk, who also owns Twitter and SpaceX, traveled to China last month and met the foreign commerce and industry ministers, as well as Robin Zeng, founder and chair of CATL, the world's biggest maker of EV batteries. His trip returned the spotlight to restrictions on free speech that have intensified under Xi. Twitter is banned in China, and Musk refrained from using the platform during his visit, drawing criticism from human rights groups over allegations of compliance with Chinese censorship. And again, sure, that could be him just worrying about his car sales, but for frame of reference, it is super easy to use Twitter from China. You just get a VPN app. I performed a bunch of comedy shows in Shanghai, China a few years back, and I tweeted up a storm. I risked getting in trouble, did it anyway, but I didn't have as much to lose economically, and getting arrested in China might have been interesting for my life story. Tesla's commitment to core socialist values and Musk's absence from Twitter while in China appear to clash, at least in spirit, with Musk's 2022 description of himself as a free speech absolutist, according to the Financial Times. And this latest episode is the latest reminder of the tightrope many multinationals must walk amid increasing assertiveness from the Chinese government and hawkishness in their home markets. In recent years, accusations of obeisance to Beijing have hit countless companies, from HSBC and Nike to the hotel group Marriott and car company Daimler.
Yeah. So, guys, I think that Elon back in 2018 called himself a socialist because he grew up in another country, whereas he grew up in South Africa. So in the rest of the world, the word socialist is not scary. Doesn't mean the same thing that it means here in America, because it doesn't mean anything here other than what the scary stuff that media can stuff into it and Republicans can stuff into it. So in growing up in South Africa, probably being a socialist was super normal, as it is in a great majority of the world. Now, if you think socialism equals communism, first of all, you're wrong, because they're literally two different concepts and two different words. But in America, that's how it's often confused. So they're like, oh, and in fact, with China, they'll say the Communist Chinese Party. I can't believe Musk is he's a socialist, is gonna go to China, and they're gonna, wait, if they're such socialist / communists, why did they let him sell Tesla there? I'm pretty sure Tesla's a private company, and I'm sure that when you buy it, you own your private car. Oh, right, because all these words are meaningless. And as Jackson pointed out, China is now largely a capitalist country, but one with central planning and largely, basically a dictatorship. But it ain't got nothing to do with communists.
Yeah, 100%. And my last point is, Elon Musk, for him to be, the right wing's American ideological hero, he's not even from here, which makes it even more ridiculous because he doesn't really have, anything in the fight. He doesn't have any skin in the game for real. He's an international businessman. He's gonna do whatever he needs to do, just like Napoleon. Every time he went anywhere, he pretended to be Muslim when he conquered Egypt. He go here, he pretended to be, anywhere he goes, it's no different. So, the man from South Africa, he's the American ideological political hero for the right, which is an oxymoron.
If that's where he's really from, I think he'll get back to people on Mars one day.
Exactly.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Ben, let's do the last story.
Beauty has been banned. There will be no more getting your hair did, at least in Afghanistan, according to the new and improved super chill Taliban that we were all promised after we left there. Oh boy. Women's beauty salons were banned in Afghanistan because they offered services forbidden by Islam and caused economic hardships for grooms' families during wedding festivities, the Taliban said on Thursday. The explanation came days after the group confirmed they were giving all salons a very generous 1 month to wind down their businesses in the country and close up shop drawing concern from international officials worried about the impact on female entrepreneurs. The ruling is the latest curb on the rights and freedoms of Afghan women and girls, following edicts barring them from, just a couple things like education, public spaces, and most forms of employment. In a video clip released Thursday, Sadiq Akif Majer, the spokesman for the Taliban-run Virtue and Vice Ministry, listed a series of services salons offered that he said went against Islam. Those included eyebrow shaping, how dare you in front of the Lord, the use of other people's hair to augment a woman's natural hair, what is this, Halloween? And the application of makeup, which, heaven forbid, would interfere with the ablutions required before offering prayers. If you're gonna pray to God, make sure it's without something to even out your skin tone, please, for the love of humanity. In addition, the salons cause economic stress on grooms' families who are required by custom to pay for the pre-wedding salon visit by the bride and her close family relatives. I do feel them on that one. The ban comes days after Taliban Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada, did I pronounce his last name correctly? Akhundzada claimed his government had taken steps for the betterment of women's lives in Afghanistan. Akhundzada, the perfect name, continuing the time-honored tradition of politicians saying the exact opposite of what they're doing. Amina Sharifi, who owns a Kabul salon, said she was the only breadwinner in her family since her husband, a former policeman, had been unemployed since the Taliban took power in August 2021. The beauty salon was our only income, and now I don't know what to do. How should we pay for our expenses, the mother of four said. The families of 3 other women working for her will also lose their incomes. So things are shaping up as everybody probably predicted in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So look, all fundamentalists hate freedom because by definition, they're fundamentalists. So they say, I'm right about everything, whether it's religious or political, more religious, unfortunately these days on planet Earth. And they say, and I was told by God or some other mythical creature, and it's 100% correct because it's handed down by God, so you can't disagree with it. Well, that's a disastrous way to run a society. And it doesn't matter which religion it is, all fundamentalists are wrong. Okay, all right. Now, secondly, they say, well, you can't criticize my culture. No, wrong again, Bob. I can, and I will. And so I was born Muslim, I grew up Muslim. Not all Muslims are fundamentalists. In fact, the overwhelming majority of Muslims are not fundamentalists. They have uncles and aunts and grandmothers and kids just like yours, okay? But these fundamentalists, just as fundamentalist Christians in America make all Christians look bad. Oh, Jesus told me to buy a jet and make you pay for it. Really? Did Jesus? And these Taliban losers. We are sure that men are superior to women. That's why don't let them get educated because they're definitely gonna kick our ass. Don't give them equal rights. Oh my God, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Oh, please don't let them go to a beauty salon. I mean, look at us, we're disasters. We don't want them looking good. Yeah, that's what I thought. Losers, your culture sucks. Give women equal rights, let them get educated, let them have freedom. And that goes to all the fundamentalist religions that keep telling you to discriminate against different groups because God told them. Yeah, why doesn't God ever tell anybody to do something nice? And the reality is he does. Unfortunately, the hateful part of a lot of these religions have won over these fundamentalist areas, and they're leading to a toxic culture we all have to fight together. Jackson.
Yeah, 100%. The foundation of fundamentalism is fear and insecurity at the end of the day. But it really just blows my mind how much the United States has destroyed much of the Middle East and Afghanistan, and really empirical powers throughout the last couple of 100 years involvement in the Afghanistan area that really has led to what it is today.
All right, we are out of time, but we've got a bonus episode coming up for you guys, including the best feel-good story you'll see in a long, long time. It starts out disastrously, but it ends great. So tyt.com/join, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below the video, and all the members will see you there in a minute.
You know, old school was pitched to me from Jake. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben,
and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.